programming from the Littleton Historical Museum, beautiful Littleton, New Hampshire. I've been experiencing a wonderful spring day today, and sunny, warm, and when we're done with this, I'm going home to work in the gardens. And I hope most of you can get out and enjoy the beautiful weather that we're experiencing. Finally, spring is here. So today, as I said in the announcement previously, that today we're going to be dealing with clothing, with our clothing exhibit. And we have a pretty good clothing exhibit, textiles. So I'm going to start off with something that people find rather interesting, and I get a kick out of talking about, the Winter Carnival Robe. Now, as you can see, this robe, all right, wrapped around a mannequin who was wearing a dress from the 1920s. Something that most people mention when they come down here is how the real good condition that our textiles are in. We do have air cleaning units in the museum. And it keeps humidity down, so we're rather fortunate to be able to do this. But I'd like to talk about this this wonderful robe, and I have here a photograph of one of the carnival queens wearing the robe. How close am I, Glenn?
That's good.
All right, and this is Elizabeth Parker, and it says First Queen, 1926. The Winter Carnival, Littleton used to hold a Winter Carnival every year starting from 1924 until 1945. And when a young lady was crowned queen, and we have a replica of the crown, well, that might actually be the real one. It's been repaired a few times, but they would be, when they were crowned queen, they would be given a robe to wear, this one here, all right? And we have a collection in here of Winter Carnival queens back in the 1920s, okay? And it has their names, there's names in the front, and you can see the robe that they're wearing, and it's the robe that's in back of me. Now, the robe is royal purple, and there's an interesting story that goes with the robe, and the material was made from fabric that was donated by the Alexander Casket Company. We had a casket company up off of Beacon Street. It is where Hitchner's was, and it's a big brick building. And if you're looking at the brick building over to the left, there's another building, and that was the Alexander Casket Company. It used to be a silver plate company, so it's gone through a lot of changes over the decades, the many decades. Well, Alexander Casket Company donated the fabric because they wanted it to be, well, the people who put the whole program together, they wanted something regal, and purple is a regal color. So actually, we would have our queen would be crowned, and then she would be robed in casket lining. It's a little bit faded. It used to be much, well, you figure from 1925. It's just kind of an interesting thing when people would come down, and visitors come down and look at this, and I give them the tour and say, yeah, this is casket lining, and they go, oh, how morbid. And I go, well, I don't know, it's kind of regal. All right. Now to move over this way, we have, I understand that on the camera this comes out as blue. It's actually very purple, very, very purple. And it's a velvet. This is from the 1920s. So this piece of clothing is probably anywhere from 90 to 100 years old. My guess is what I'm going to do is put it around the early 1920s, because by the shape, the style of it, it's all hand embroidered. I don't know, can you see that, Glenn? the embroidery on that. So this was a handmade article of clothing, and it's like I said, it's probably about 1922, 1923. So we're up to like 97, 98 years old. Over here, we have a Victorian outfit, and you notice how small when we ordered the mannequins for these, it was really difficult to find mannequins that the clothing would fit, because back in the day, women wore whalebone corsets, and it was the time period of having the real tiny waists and cinching it in the corsets. This would probably be used for mourning. It's all in black. There's some lace on it, and the pendant, it was just from our collection. We put it on there because it showed up fairly nicely. But so this is from this article of clothing would probably be from the 1890s. Okay, and my guess would be, or my estimate would be late 1890s, because there's no bustle in the back. Okay, so this was like after the bustles ended. Now, down in here, we have some other in these two old-fashioned trunks. We have this, it's a jacket. Now, there was probably a black skirt that went with it. And then I'm going to bring this pretty close to the camera, because you have to see the detail in this. And it's all hand done. You see how shiny it is? And you're getting a good shot of that, Glenn? Mm-hmm. Okay, and you can see, is it like in here? All right, you can see it's all hand embroidered. All right, and this was a top. So there would be a black skirt to go with it. And yeah, just another piece from our collection that we have in this exhibit. All right, over here we have, this would be probably very early Edwardian. It's an evening gown, and I don't know if you can see up through here, the detail that is, how this is shiny. One of the things when we put this display together, we adjusted the lighting so it would catch the jewel work that was done to make it shine. You could probably see it having some sort of standing here and looking at it, and when I move side to side, it's almost twinkling. So this would be most likely from the Edwardian period, and that would be very early 1900s, probably up to around 1912. It is possible that dresses of this style would have been worn by ladies on the Titanic. Okay, it's long sleeve. There's no bustle. There's a train. There's a lot of material in the back. It's tied off to the side. All right. Now we have to kind of swing around to this side, because there's another piece over here, and when you get swung around, this dress, I would not say would be a dress to be worn for mourning, because you have this fancy embroidery, this belt, but you can also see it has a small bustle. Now, I had a visitor whose forte was in vintage clothing, and she was very impressed. She went nuts over the clothing that we had, because she said how the wonderful condition it is. Now, all of they are in. Now, if you look through, you can see the pattern, and it's like a fern pattern. So, with a small bustle, the fern pattern, what we're looking at here is probably late 1890s, because the bustles were getting smaller until they went into non-existence. So we had that, and actually the way we had it set up originally is we had it backwards until this person came in and said, think that mannequin's wearing it backwards, so we had to redo it. But if you look, it has all sorts of glittery, all up through here, accents. And the lace down here in the sleeve is the same lace that's up here around the neck. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece, wonderful condition for, about 125 years old. As I said, we try to take care of, really try to take care of especially our textiles. Now, Glenn, if you'd follow, and everyone else, hold on tight, Glenn's moving you. And we're going over to this area. And you probably see Betty Davis is in the barber shop. All right. Now, this kind of like, this gives you a walk around the museum to give an idea of like when you do come in and you get the tour and you can see this up close and personal. This is probably my favorite piece. You got a good shot of that, Glenn? All right, this is my favorite piece. This is a Civil War mourning cape. The woman who made this made it when her husband was killed in a Civil War, when he became a casualty of war. And it's somewhere around 1862. And it was owned and worn by Harriet Foster of Derby Line, Vermont, great-grandmother of Duncan McCleod. Now, Duncan and I know Duncan, and it says, when I looked the research up on it, the color black best represented the Victorian act of mourning because it symbolizes the absence of light, and in turn, life. It was an instantly recognizable sign that a loved one had departed this life, and also said that that wearing black for mourning comes from a Roman idea. The mourners could prevent being haunted from the ghost of the deceased by cloaking themselves in black. So that's the story of why people wear black for mourning. It goes back to the Roman Empire. All right, but this was another piece that impressed the visitor that day, and she said, "You know something? If you look at the beadwork all through here, that beadwork is all original, okay? And Harriet Foster, back in 1862, 1861, 1862, the Civil War period, hand sewed all of those glass beads onto this cape." I think we're back. We're back. Okay. Are we back?
Yeah.
All right. Anyone watching us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Several.
If we're back, could you kind of like give us a thumbs up thing that's floating up the side? All right. So this was, the color black comes from ancient Rome. And as I said, I read the article on there, that the Romans used to wear black because they felt that the spirits or the ghosts could not see them at night. All right. But what really impressed are the beads. These beads have been on here for over 150 years, about 155 years, and they're still there. So that is very, very impressive. Now, Mrs. Foster would wear this when she would go out, when she would go to church, when she would go to market, and she would wear it over her regular house dress. She probably did not dress fully in black. I mean, the whole idea of wearing black for mourning not only came from the Romans, but it was a big thing during the Victorian time, because when Albert died, Queen Victoria's husband, she went into mourning up until the day she died, and that was, I believe, 1901, 1902, and she wore black for the rest of her life. So this was what was accepted in the world. Now, a regular dress, if we move over this way, Glenn, all right, I have Glenn stuck between the camera and the railroad track. These dresses here, this one here, and there's another one on the back. These are actually from the 1860s. So this is what Mrs. Foster would have worn under that mourning cape, all right? And this was a regular house dress. Lady would wear an apron to keep the dress clean. She would, you know, dress like this to do all of her chores around the property. Now, it may not have been one piece, because also she would wear a shirt waist sometimes and a black skirt, okay? Now, to move into this way, not doing too badly, we have a dress here from the 1930s, okay? And it's very light. And the mannequin, now, how many of you remember McCleod's store on Main Street? Many of you remember McCleod's? Okay? The mannequin came from McCleod's. So, for those of you who remember McCleod's store on Main Street, this mannequin, you've seen her before, okay? She's in pretty tough shape for being this old, but well, she's actually hanging on pretty well. She has a Band-Aid because her finger broke off, but we fixed her up. But we have, you know, from the 1930s, okay? And then back in here, all right, I wanted to point here, we have a collection of children's clothing in here. And this is a christening gown, all handmade, excellent quality. I've had people look at these and just can't believe the handiwork, and I'm going to bring it, Glenn, tell me when I'm getting too close for comfort.
You're good.
That's good? You can see the detail of the work on this, all handmade. All right, even right down to the little sleeve. All right, so that's kind of we have a collection of children's clothing. Here's the children's coat. All right, right down to the clasps. And this was worn by Edith Bellows Wallace, age 7, donated by Mrs. Harold G. Cushing. But if you look at it, even, you know, people may be interested in the interior, fully lined. So children's coat, and it's satiny. So I imagine it's made out of satin. I'm not into sewing. I don't sew, but I just don't have the ability. So anyway, we have a children's clothing collection here. Okay, we have some fur coats right here. We have another. This one here is it's a child's. Let's see. I think I can issue. Here we go. We have a little girl's dress, complete with bonnet. But here's a little girl's dress. Button up the back. Cotton. Look at the, I guess, what do they call it? Pleats in the back and in the front. So we have quite a collection of textiles.
Why did the girls' clothes survive and the boys didn't?
Because the boys were much tougher on their clothes. And I have something to show you which Glenn just brought to mind, all right? I think it's pretty well done in here. I want to show you what happens or happened to boys' clothing. Would you follow me, please? Okay. See this quilt? At least I think that's the quilt. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right one. This I did not plan on talking about. Got a good shot of this quilt, Glenn?
Yes.
All right. This quilt is constructed out of used clothing. Now, how come the boys' clothing didn't survive? Well, The boys' clothing were patched, repatched, patched, double patched, triple patched, and even the patches were patched. All right? So I guess it was patch-up time, because we all know boys. And, I mean, girls play rough too. But back in the day, little girls wore dresses, little boys wore trousers. Okay? And that was just the way it was. So this is what happened to the boys' clothing. It would become a quilt. And if you look at this, I'm going to do a program on the quilts, and you'll hear this again. If you can see the stitching in it, it's very, very rough. Beautifully done, but it's roughly done. It's not a very fine stitch in it. But this is what happened to the boys' clothing. And it says here, it has embroidered details and was sized for a bed. It was probably an under quilt. This is what happened to the boys' clothing. It became a quilt, if there was any of it left. Okay, after the child grew up and played until he could. And over here, we have shown you've met Elmer before. This is Elmer Thayer. He's our favorite adolescent, and he will always be an adolescent. And he was in the Thayer's Hotel. That's what we call him, Elmer Thayer. All right, because on the second floor there used to be a display of an 1850s room. Elmer was in there. He was the boy who would bring the water and empty the thunder jugs and bring the fuel for the stove to keep the person warm. And when the Thayer's the Thayer's owners decided that they were going to revamp some of the rooms, this room here was revamped into a guest room. So they had Elmer, and I received a phone call and said, would you like to have a mannequin from Thayer's? I said, yeah, we'll take him. So we call him Elmer, and we call him Elmer Thayer. And and we put a hat on him and gave him glasses because he was a little nearsighted. But I have to tell you an interesting story. He does weigh because of the heavy stand that he's with. So what I put him on a dolly, and we walked down to Thayer's. And I don't know, were you with me, Glenn, when we got him? Someone was with me, and so we put him on a dolly. And I got a lot of really strange looks from people as I wheeled him back up Main Street toward the Opera House. And because I had to hold the dolly, and then I had to get him in a muckaluck like this so he wouldn't fall off. And then part way, like right near Chudder's, his arms fell off. And that really did catch a lot of attention. I was getting a lot of attention with a boy strapped to a dolly, but it really caught a lot when his arms fell off. So anyway, that's where we've gone with this, and it's not quite a half hour, 30 minutes. So listen, stay tuned on Saturday morning. We will do another program on Littleton photography. On Sunday at 9 is music, and I'm glad to hear that I can make a few people happy. It's kind of a neat thing to sit there and pick out a hymn. And if I have the music, I'll play it for you. So we'll see you back down at the museum on Saturday morning, 10:30. Remember, like us, like the museum, put any, good comments and reviews and all that other good stuff with it. So take care. Have a wonderful day. Be safe.